Some relationships don't collapse. They erode you, slowly, quietly. And almost always with one of 6 types of women men are naturally drawn to without understanding why. Maybe she felt familiar. Maybe she felt exciting. Maybe she felt like someone you needed to save. But if you walked out feeling confused, drained, or unlike yourself, you're about to understand why. That's why today, I'm revealing the 6 types of women men must avoid, and the signs that expose them long before the chaos begins. This isn't about blaming women. It's about finally understanding the psychology behind the connections that derail your life. Stick with me. You're about to gain the clarity most men never get. You and I both know this. Men rarely fall for the wrong woman because they're foolish. They fall because something far deeper is at play. Patterns written into them long before they ever learned how to choose. Most men don't realize how much of their romantic life is shaped by early imprinting, the kind that makes familiarity feel like attraction. A certain tone of voice, a kind of softness, a hint of chaos, even a wounded innocence. These things can trigger memories they don't consciously remember, but still respond to. And when that feeling kicks in, logic fades fast. There's also the rush. The dopamine pull that comes when someone sparks excitement, desire, or emotional intensity. The brain loves stimulation, not stability. And that's why a man can meet a woman who feels electric and assume that feeling means destiny, when really it's just chemistry wearing a mask. Attraction becomes a fog. And inside that fog, the red flags aren't invisible. You just aren't looking for them, because part of you wants the high more than the truth. But here's the reality most men never hear. The women who drain you the most aren't evil. They simply have emotional patterns that pull you in and wear you out. Patterns you mistake for compatibility. Patterns you confuse with connection. You're not wrong for wanting to love. You're only untrained in recognizing what kind of woman you're letting close. I once coached a man who fell for a woman who lit up every room she entered. She was magnetic, exciting, impossible to ignore. And slowly, she became the storm he couldn't escape. When everything finally collapsed, he told me, "I wish someone had warned me earlier." That sentence sits with me to this day. Attraction is instinct. Selection is strategy. You can't control who pulls you in, but you can control who you allow into your life. Number 1, the chronic drama queen. The woman whose life is a constant whirlwind of chaos, intensity, and emotional fires she never stops fueling. She's bright, magnetic, and full of energy, the kind that makes you feel alive the moment she walks in. But behind that spark is a reality most men don't see until they're already trapped. She doesn't just live in drama, she needs it. It's the oxygen she breathes. Her world runs on what I call the chaos dopamine cycle. Every emotional spike gives her a rush, and every quiet moment feels like withdrawal. Stillness makes her anxious. Peace feels unfamiliar. So she stirs something, anything, to create the feeling she craves. That's why her relationships with friends, coworkers, and even family are always explosive. Not because she's unlucky, but because turmoil is her comfort zone. The signs are clearer than you think. First, everywhere she goes, conflict follows. It's always a fight with a best friend, a heated argument with a sibling, a feud at work, a misunderstanding with an ex. The details change, but the pattern never does. Second, the smallest inconvenience turns into a full-blown catastrophe. You're late 5 minutes? Suddenly she's spiraling. You didn't reply fast enough? She's convinced you're pulling away. Third, her presence slowly fills your life with negativity, gossip, tension, and emotional fatigue that drains your energy before you even realize it's happening. And you, unintentionally, become cast in one of 2 roles: the hero she expects you to be, or the villain she blames when the chaos has nowhere else to go. Either way, you're in the story she's writing, not the life you're choosing. When you date a woman who thrives on turmoil, you don't get a relationship, you get episodes. You get unpredictable highs followed by exhausting lows. And worst of all, you lose your peace without noticing you gave it away. A woman who thrives on chaos will eventually treat you as the source of her next episode. So pay attention to how she treats the world around her, because sooner or later, that same emotional storm will find its way to your front door. Number 2, the manipulative, nice girl. She is the kind of woman every man thinks he wants. Soft-spoken, attentive, supportive, and impossibly sweet. She makes you feel chosen in a way that seems pure, harmless, safe. But what most men never realize until it's too late is that her sweetness isn't the danger. It's the camouflage. This woman doesn't control you with aggression. She controls you with tenderness. Instead of shouting, she whispers. Instead of demanding, she suggests. Instead of pushing, she gently nudges you into guilt, obligation, and self-doubt. The trap she sets is subtle, and that's why it works. She starts with what I call micro-love bombing, not the exaggerated, overwhelming kind you see from overt manipulators. No, her version is quieter, more refined. She studies what you need emotionally and mirrors it back to you in small but calculated doses. She builds the image of the perfect partner, the one who gets you, supports you, understands you. And just when you start to relax into that comfort, the conditioning begins. You'll hear phrases like, "I guess I just care too much," or "I never thought you'd treat me like this after everything I've done for you." They sound innocent, but they're not. They're emotional levers designed to make you question yourself and work harder to keep her comfortable. Her compliments shift too. They become backhanded, subtle jabs disguised as affection. "You look great today. I was starting to think you didn't care anymore." It sounds soft, but it lands sharp. And each time, your confidence erodes just a little more. In conflict, she always plays the fragile one, the misunderstood one, the one who only tried to love you. Her victimhood is strategic. It puts you into the role of comforter, and her into the role of the person you feel responsible for. Before long, you aren't loving her. You're managing her. And that is the point. A woman who uses kindness as a weapon will never love you, only manage you. The only way to see her clearly is to test consistency. Real kindness stays stable. It doesn't turn into pressure the moment you stop performing. Pay attention to whether her sweetness stands on its own, or whether it comes with strings you can't quite see but always feel tightening. Number 3, the serial social climber. She's elegant, polished, and effortlessly charming, the kind of woman who makes you feel important simply by giving you her attention. She knows how to laugh at the right moment, how to lean in when you speak, how to make you believe she sees something special in you. But her interest isn't in who you are. It's in what being with you allows her to access. This is the woman who treats relationships like stepping stones. She has an instinct for status, not just wealth, but influence, visibility, and opportunity. In her world, people aren't partners. They're ladders. It begins innocently. She asks about your work, your goals, your lifestyle. She compliments your drive, your ambition, the way you carry yourself. But soon, the pattern emerges. First, she becomes unusually curious about your connections. She wants to know who you know, how close you are, and what they do. She lights up when you mention someone successful. Second, her attention sharpens whenever she sees that your life contains access, exclusive events, influential circles, opportunities she can't create on her own. Third, her expectations don't match her effort. She wants the luxury, the comfort, the elevated lifestyle, but contributes very little beyond presence and charm. The truth is, she's not building a relationship with you. She's positioning herself. She's aligning with your success because proximity to you elevates her image, and the moment you stop rising or stop opening doors, she starts drifting toward the next source of momentum. This kind of woman rarely leaves loudly. She just becomes slightly colder, slightly busier, slightly more distant, until she's already halfway into the life of another man who can offer her a higher rung to climb. If she loves the doors, You can open more than the man who opens them. Step back. The way to see her clearly is simple. Strip away the glamour. Take her somewhere low-key, quiet, ordinary. Remove the spotlight. If her enthusiasm drops when the status disappears, you have your answer. Genuine connection thrives in simplicity. Self-interest dies there. Number 4, the perpetual victim. She isn't loud. She isn't chaotic. She isn't manipulative in obvious ways. In fact, she often appears gentle, wounded, and misunderstood, someone you feel naturally compelled to protect. And that's exactly why so many men fall into her orbit without realizing the emotional trap hidden beneath her softness. She is committed not to growth, but to her pain. Her identity is built around being wronged. By life, by exes, by friends, by fate. She is the center of an endless string of unfortunate events, all of which somehow happened to her, never because of her. And while her stories may be heartbreaking, there is always one constant. She is never responsible for anything. This pattern is more than bad luck. It's a psychological loop. Learned helplessness keeps her stuck in the same emotional place, repeating the same wounds with different people. Trauma bonding makes her cling to anyone who offers comfort, and seeking sympathy becomes her way of maintaining connection. Not through accountability, not through self-awareness, through pity. The signs reveal themselves slowly. First, every past relationship ended because the other person was cruel, selfish, unstable, or heartless. She has never once said, "I played a part in it." Second, every conflict in her life, from missed deadlines to broken friendships, is someone else's fault. There's always a reason, always a villain. Third, her life story is a loop of "you won't believe what happened to me again," delivered in a tone that keeps you oscillating between protecting her and worrying for her. At first, you feel noble stepping in to support her, but soon you become the emotional crutch she relies on, the person responsible for filling the void she refuses to confront. And when you can't fix everything for her, because no one can, you become the next source of disappointment, the next culprit in her ongoing narrative of pain. A woman invested in her pain cannot invest in a relationship, so watch how she responds to gentle feedback. A woman ready for growth will reflect. A woman rooted in victimhood will deflect. And that simple distinction tells you everything you need to know. Number 5, the commitment phobe in disguise. She isn't avoidant in the obvious sense. She doesn't run from affection. In fact, she gives you just enough of it to keep you hooked. She'll hold your hand, stay up all night talking, melt into you when you pull her close, and for a moment, you feel chosen, wanted, even prioritized. But don't mistake that warmth for stability. What she really wants is the feeling of connection, not the responsibility that comes with sustaining it. Her emotional pattern is rooted in fear. Fear of being trapped, fear of losing her autonomy, fear of letting someone get close enough to see parts of her she can't control. So she crafts a rhythm that allows her to feel intimacy without ever surrendering to it. A rhythm that keeps you guessing. The signs are subtle at first. First, her behavior swings between intensity and distance. One day she's glued to you, texting nonstop, wanting to see you, making plans. The next day she drifts, suddenly overwhelmed, suddenly busy, suddenly needing space. Second, she avoids defining anything. Ask her what she wants and she'll say, "Let's just enjoy the moment," or "Why rush things?" It sounds relaxed, but it's actually evasive. Third, every story from her past involves relationships that were almost something, situationships that just didn't work out, or partners who were too much too soon. What she really loves is the chase, the excitement that comes before things get real. When you're slightly out of reach, she's fully engaged. The moment you show up with clarity and consistency, she pulls back. Not because you're wrong for her, but because seriousness activates her fear. And that's the part most men misunderstand. They They try harder. They become the pursuer. They start proving themselves, fixing things, smoothing the dynamic. But the more you chase her, the safer she feels running. When her affection comes and goes, it's not your worth. It's her fear. So speak plainly. Call out the inconsistency. Set boundaries she can't blur. And most importantly, never chase a woman whose pattern requires you to shrink your needs just to keep her close. Number 6. The overly controlling perfectionist. She appears put together, thoughtful, and deeply attentive. She remembers the little things, how you like your coffee, the exact way you fold your shirts, the tone you use when you're stressed. At first, this attention feels flattering. It feels like care. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, it shifts into something else. Correction, supervision, and control wrapped in soft language. Her sense of safety depends on order, on things being done the right way, her way. Underneath the polished exterior is a woman whose anxiety drives her to manage every detail she can touch. And when you enter her world, that impulse doesn't stop at her home, her schedule, or her routines. It extends to you. The early signs are easy to overlook. First, she begins micromanaging the smallest choices you make, how you dress, how you plan your day, even how you speak. It starts with suggestions but quickly turns into constant adjustments. Second, she disguises control as concern. You'll hear things like, "I just want what's best for you," or "I'm only saying this because I care." The words are gentle, but the expectation behind them is rigid. Third, the ratio of criticism to appreciation shifts. You find yourself hearing more about what you're doing wrong than what you're doing right. And no matter how hard you try, there's always something that could be improved. Over time, her standards, impossibly high, ever-changing, become the measure you're graded against. And what starts as helpfulness becomes suffocating. The more you adapt, the more she tightens her grip. Until eventually, you begin losing pieces of yourself just to maintain peace. The most dangerous part is that she truly believes she's helping. She doesn't see her control as control. She sees it as love, structure, and guidance. And if you ever push back, she interprets it as ingratitude or carelessness. Control dressed as care is still control. The only way to protect yourself is to set boundaries early, clearly, and firmly. If she respects them, there's hope. If she resists, argues, or reframes your limits as a personal attack, then you're not in a partnership. You're in a system she's trying to run. You've seen 6 very different women, each with her own patterns, her own charms, her own shadows. On the surface, they seem unrelated. One thrives on chaos. One manipulates through sweetness. One hunts status. One clings to pain. One fears commitment. One controls through perfection. Different stories, different behaviors, different ways of drawing a man in and wearing him down. But beneath all those differences lies a single, unmistakable thread: emotional imbalance. Each of these women pulls you into a dynamic where you're not meeting in the middle. You're compensating, you're rescuing, you're fixing, you're proving, you're absorbing, you're shrinking. Instead of standing beside her as an equal, you end up becoming a character in the emotional script she's been living long before she met you. And that script forces you into one of 3 roles: the fixer, the rescuer, or the provider of emotional energy she can't generate on her own. It feels flattering at first, being needed, being wanted, being important, but slowly, inevitably, it drains you. Because no relationship can stay healthy when one person becomes the fuel keeping the other person emotionally afloat. These patterns linger because they target a man's deepest instincts: the desire to protect, to save, to guide, to be the steady presence someone can count on. But those instincts can turn against you when they're triggered by the wrong woman, one who doesn't grow with you, but leans on you. One who doesn't share responsibility, but hands it to you. One who doesn't build partnership, but demands emotional labor disguised as love. You don't need to change these women. You don't need to diagnose them. You don't need to fix their past or rewrite their stories. You only need to recognize that not every woman who pulls you in is meant to walk with you. You don't need to change women. You need to choose wisely. Attraction is instinct. Selection is identity. And the moment you learn to evaluate patterns instead of chasing feelings, you shift from being a man who reacts to a man who leads his own life with clarity. You've walked through 6 patterns that drain a man's strength, disrupt his peace, and erode his sense of self. And if there's one truth I want you to carry with you long after this video ends, it's this. Loving someone isn't the hard part. Choosing someone who protects your peace, respects your boundaries, and matches your emotional maturity, that's where most men fall. Women aren't the enemy, not the dramatic ones, not the sweet manipulators, not the social climbers, not the wounded souls, not the avoidant flirters, not the perfectionists. None of them are villains. They simply carry emotional dynamics that may not align with the life you're trying to build. They aren't bad. They're just not right for a man who values stability, clarity, and reciprocity. And you deserve those things more than you realize. Because as a man, you are taught to endure, to tolerate, to push through discomfort and call it strength. But real strength isn't staying in situations that drain you. It's recognizing when a connection is costing you more than it gives back. It's knowing when to step away. Not from love itself, but from versions of love that require you to abandon your peace to keep the relationship alive. Every red flag you learn to recognize is a piece of your future you're protecting. Every boundary you set is a safeguard for the life you're trying to build. And every moment you choose clarity over chaos is a moment you reclaim control over your emotional world. So I'll leave you with a question, and I want you to answer it honestly in the comments. Which of these 6 patterns have you met in your own life, and what did it teach you about yourself? If this video helped you see relationships more clearly, subscribe to the channel. This space exists to help men navigate modern love with insight, confidence, and authority. Like the video if you want more men to avoid the mistakes you've already survived. Share it with someone who needs the wake-up call. And join the conversation below. Your experiences might be the message another man needs today. Walk forward with clarity. Choose with intention. And never trade your peace for temporary affection again.